Hey, Overthinkers, it's Sweets and Lisa here.
Hi, everyone.
We're back. We're back to do some overthinking with you, summer edition.
Summer, and I'm wearing a sweater because it's
I know,
actually.
but because it's not that great out, so that's okay. So we hope everybody's doing all right. So
Have
in
you
our
been
usual,
overthinking in the pause of our of
do you
our
know now?
podcast?
Yes, like I was doing some overthinking yesterday on my balcony and
It doesn't
just,
stop.
yeah, it doesn't. In
No,
fact, I'm just like too much time to overthink. Yeah. So
but it is nice to get back to processing it with someone, get out of my own head
I
and
agree.
think it through with someone else. Yes.
I agree. So I'm ready for you.
All
So.
right. All right. All right. I have a word for you today, and it is right up your alley. And I
No.
don't think we've talked about this word yet. I don't
Okay.
think. If we have, we'll start over and I'll give you another word.
Okay. Okay.
So the word is faith. Have we talked about this one yet?
I have not.
So we've talked about this together as
It,
friends. We've
is
talked
it
about this
terrible
word.
that I started to think of the song, You Gotta Have Faith,
Of
Faith.
course.
Sorry. Okay. I
Why wouldn't
digress.
anyone think of George
Yes,
Michael?
that's it. George
This is
Michael.
amazing.
Yes.
And I know that we've talked about faith in the sense of like our personal connection to faith and outside of leadership. But the thing that I wanted to talk about today was faith in leadership, not necessarily connected to any spirituality, but what does a leader need to do, or what behaviors help a leader to have faith in their leadership
Hmm.
as a way to kind of insulate yourself against the obstacles and the challenges that come with leadership. So like in other words, what role does faith have, do you think, in leadership, faith in oneself or anything else? Just your thoughts on that and then I'll give you a little more context.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts. I think initially when I think about, I think I'll start with the first one is how people have faith in you. When you're talking about like, someone's leadership. And I think I really do believe I've believed this actually my whole life because of the leaders that I've really like my thought leaders that I have followed and just I think having the backdrop of your own character. There's this really good quote I just saw recently. It says, "You rent your title, but you own your character."
Mm,
And I really love that.
mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the times we spend time perfecting our skill set, which is important, not saying it's not, but we're not talking always about the things that make us high quality people. And I think for me, when I think about the people that have led me or I've allowed to lead me, it's really because they've had this consistent backdrop of who they are, right? Like almost a fortified city. So their decisions, right, can vary per se, but it's always this idea of they're rooted in, you know, their their ethics, their morality, and don't allow those things to be pushed no matter how difficult it gets. And I think, right, the things like consistency and follow through, I know sometimes those aren't like they aren't the fancy things, but answering an email in a timely fashion, I do think builds faith in, over time in people's, like feeling towards you. So I think like those small things really build trust and faith for somebody to follow you. I could say that it has for me. The people that I have followed or have allowed to lead me have been folks that are people of their word, are people who care about others and not all me, 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 me.
I love that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And then I think I was going toward, for me, the idea of at what point as a leader do
Hmm.
I need to recognize faith in myself and in the organization to exist and to keep growing? So I saw something recently, or I was literally just glanced at it about, and it's something I want to read more about, but just like builders of cathedrals, right? So generations of people who built the great cathedrals on earth,
Okay.
who worked on the project and never saw it to completion. generations of people who were just this one small portion in the construction of something amazing, and how much faith they would have had to have in the project to dedicate their lives, right? Their working lives to the construction of something that they would never see. And how, as a leader, I think that's what we do. I think we have to have faith that what we're working on will outlast us, will
Yeah.
outlast, anyone really in the organization, but that the work that we're doing right now is sort of a pit stop,
Hmm.
or just, maintenance or tweaking along the way. And that faith that the organization will still be there in one way, I think, can support a more courageous outlook, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it can also tamp down the importance that we feel like every decision has, like in a good way. Because I think it's so heavy. Leadership can be so heavy sometimes, because to your point, so many people do have faith in you,
Hmm.
have faith in you to continue doing what you think is right for the organization, or leading people in those right directions. But what faith does the leader have to have in their work, in themselves, in anything beyond themselves, to
Hmm.
continue to give that level of commitment and dedication day after day, with decisions that seem so important and are so important, and yet in the grand scheme of the life of any organization are probably pretty minor.
Yeah. I really like your perspective on what that all means. That the cathedrals is a really great example. I do think that we've actually, like, nowadays we make leadership really small. It's like, oh, let's just do this real quick or get that quick win and all of those pieces. And I think, like, when back then, when you used to think leadership, it meant something, I think, more grand. And it's not because the person was grand. It was because they were looking more inward that created beauty outward. And
Mm.
now I think a lot of the times what we're doing is we're looking so much at the outward of how's it going to look, or where are we going to do that, or who's going to be unhappy on it. And we're not reflecting more inwardly to think through what really matters and why
Mhm.
it matters, and to actually bask in something's beauty versus going on to the next thing, or what else is the next, big aha, or the thing, versus doing really good work. I saw I forget the man's name, but he did the Jesus series. This isn't about Jesus. I
The
forget the man's,
Chosen?
The Chosen. Dallas, I forget his last name, but of course I did. Of course I forget that. Anyway, he was on a leadership platform and a conference I was at, but he made a really good example. They were talking about the set. And they said, "God, the set is so beautiful." And he said, "Well, we really make sure that it's authentic, but we are not people who just sand the outside. We go inside and really sand inside the drawers, even though no one's looking at those,
Mhm.
right? And no one would know." And I think leadership, sometimes when you think about having faith in something, having faith that that actually matters, to
Mhm.
sand the inside of the drawer. That even though nobody else is giving you a high five for it or looking at it, that it matters, because it matters to go deep in some things and to create something that's valuable that will outlast us. And I know we're talking a lot about building creation. That's not like but the metaphor that it
The
stands for.
metaphor is there. The metaphor is there. And I do think you're right. I like when you said we go small, or the other word I thought was superficial, right? And one thing that has never resonated with me is the idea of quick wins. And I know that it is 100% in every leadership course
I know.
everywhere.
I hate it.
How do you, when you enter into a leadership position, how do you quickly gain credibility and find those opportunities? And I'm not saying it never is good.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, there are things, when you start in a new position, that can be easily done
Yeah.
to clean things up or to solve a problem. But unless you do find a stopping point for that, or pause that work to go inside the drawers, right?
That's
And like figure out structurally what are the bones like, what is happening. It's like I have a friend who is such a gifted like interior designer. She can walk into a house and it's the ugliest house you've ever seen, and I'm like, no way I would live here, and she's like, the bones are great. I can change this around, knock this wall down, and do this and that, and it'll be wonderful. And it is. She's just
Mhm.
like, she's gifted that way. A leader needs to do that too. Like when you walk in, you need to go deep, figure out where you are to the bones. What is the core like? What are the muscles like? What are the structures like, to create health from the inside out, to your point, so that you can have something that lasts, and you can have faith that it will last beyond
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And I think it actually connects with our podcast a little bit, or just the piece of what we all always talk about is to think about our thinking, not forever, but it's actually to take more time to marinate on important things
Yeah.
versus rushing from the next one thing to the next. And it's not necessarily quality, and it's not really like thoughtful, right? And I think, and I do think, like, even going back to what I initially said, I think sometimes when you have more thoughtful approaches to that, like, let's sand inside the drawer, you build more faith in between people and
Yeah.
the organization, because, right, you've gone deeper. And
Well, and when I think of faith, right, I think of that it's believing in something that you can't necessarily see,
yeah,
right? And
yes,
so your story works because if you know that the foundation is solid, but you can't necessarily see it, but it's not something you can point to, but you
mhm,
know that inside the systems and the structures and the relationships are solid,
yes,
then what comes out, it's like that's the leading indicators. Then what comes out of that eventually are better outcomes, better results, because you've worked from the inside out. But that's so true, that leadership many times we're judged based on what you can see,
that's
right?
right.
You're based on the decisions that are quick and that are, seemingly impactful and public, and you could have spent years, inside
Yes,
inside figuring out all those systems, and then hopefully over time, once you've grown that inside, then the outside becomes more productive, more efficient, more effective, all of those things. But I think it's hard sometimes to take the time to go inside, and sometimes scary, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that also faith can be scary. Like a leap of faith can be scary. What if I spend all my time working on this thing that doesn't directly connect to what the outcomes are that I want to see? And there
yeah,
is a level of faith that has to be had there in the leader, and
yeah,
also that the leader has to have,
yeah,
so that you can get people on board with that quality that
yeah.
you're looking for, right? The
Yeah.
sturdiness.
The sturdiness, like a fortified city. I think it goes. I do really sometimes think it's really that faith piece lines up with somebody's intention. It's that inward facing look. I just watched a TikTok of Taylor Swift. She won the music award, not the music award, just inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
What she said was really interesting to me, and I love my Taylor Swift, so that's why you smiled, and that's fine. But
I,
one thing,
I'm not opposed.
I know, that's totally. One thing she said that I think is really interesting. She had to learn the whole industry and all the things and how to do the flashy stuff. But she says at the end of the day, what came the most natural to her was songwriting. It was just that craft, right? And I think that whether you're in leadership or you're not, I think it's easier to have faith in something that you authentically are, like, it's in you, for lack of better words, right? Like, there's a strength that I think all of us have. I think we're innately, I have the faith to believe that all of us have strengths and talents that were given to us. And I think that sometimes when we imagine what would have happened if Taylor forgot that route
Hmm.
and would just be like, but it's about the flash, and let me do one more, make one more t-shirt or whatever. And you would lose something. I think the reason she's got such a following is because she never lost that. And I think for any organization or any leader, there's got to be something so sacred for you, whether it's some talent that you mature, whether it's, like, but it's inward, that it's almost just right, that keeps you hyper focused. That I think when people even know that you have something like that, that's so genuine, that I do believe sometimes people will be like, yeah, I'll do this thing with you because, right? Like that kind of thing. I do believe that. I
I
actually,
love that you said the word craft. I think we're going to see in the coming year, 2 years, a return to a, a mindset of craft,
yeah.
because I see it only, in my kids too,
Mhm.
as we enter into this phase of like discovering what artificial intelligence
Yes,
can
for sure.
do, right? And it can do a lot,
Hmm.
but the like the critical thing there is artificial, and it feels very artificial,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and the attention to craft has to be done on the outside by
Yes.
a person with humanity, with that core of what you said, the belief, the passion,
Yeah.
the experience, right? The depth of understanding
Yes.
that isn't artificial, that's come from a lived experience that can't be contrived, because our own unique experiences are just that. There's no way that a large language model is going to at some point figure out all the combinations of experiences that everyone's ever had that could lead to a tapestry of, a map of someone's leadership ability. That's just not, I, I hope it's not possible. I hope that's not ever able to be replicated, because I think that's what humans bring to the art of leadership, the craft of leadership, or the craft of anything,
Yeah.
really.
I agree. I do. I mean, I think about AI can make me a really good slide deck, for instance. But, like my favorite thing in the world to do is to storytell and teach and facilitate, right? So they can make me a really good slide deck, but it is me, it is that craft in me that will actually be doing the work that goes along with it. And you can separate those two things. What I worry for future is that, right, we're trying really hard to just be really great at AI, but we have to always touch back in. And it's like, what is my innate abilities that I can actually show in between all of this AI stuff? So,
And I think that's why I came to this word, because I think right now, in many ways, people are looking for things to have faith in.
yes.
And I understand why. I see it in my own
Yeah.
kids,
Hmm.
looking for something to grab onto, that feels sturdy, that feels safe. And
Yeah.
for some people, that will be, a spirituality. For some people, that will be some other kind of community, or some other kind of maybe skill development or passion that they have in themselves. But I do think this idea of having faith
Hmm.
and taking risks and working on the things that are unseen and invisible without applause, right? Without likes, without rankings. Like, I think we're getting a little tired of the superficiality of, like, I do this thing so that I can get a million likes from people I don't know. And then you're left kind of like, well, what do I do next? As opposed to spending the time to curate those unseen skills and dispositions that really put you in the position to do what you do in a way with integrity and effectiveness. But you have to have faith that ultimately it's going to pay off, and that, like I said, like, it will last.
That's it. I don't think we were meant to just like always watch like all of these things and just add a bunch of likes. I think actually we're coming to a point where people are so tired of it. When you actually find someone who's doing really good work, for lack of better words, it will draw you in. It draws you in because it does look different than the rest. And I
Yeah.
think there's a faith and there's something to be said about that. So, yeah, I love it. Yeah.
So I appreciate you
Yeah.
exploring this word with me, because
Good one.
it's
It's a
just
good
something
word.
that's been on my mind a lot
Yeah, for sure.
recently.
I love it. So,
And y'all, we are here. And if there's anything that you want to overthink with us, or us to overthink with you, we're here to do that. But for now, we're going to keep giving ourselves grace in this crazy time. and close all the tabs in our head, and we will see you next time. Thanks for being here.
Bye. Bye, everybody.